all our viewers of the community show, many thanks for joining us this afternoon, and we welcome each and every one of you. Today's topic is going to focus on the new kid on the block, the latest entrant to the East African community, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo. So today we shall focus on particularly the insecurity in Eastern Congo and how it affects economic trade, both at the border region, but also across the entire East African community. We know that Congo has had a fair share of insecurity, and this goes back to the days of Mobutu Sese Seko, to the Kabila days, and it has continued to, recur. The first challenges with the Allied Democratic Forces, among other, terrorist groups. But the most recent being that the ADF that has camped and has captured part of Eastern Congo and continues to terrorize the community there. Well, today we shall focus on how this particular insecurity is affecting economic activities at the border and also within the East African region. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the community show. And I'm joined by a panel of distinguished gentlemen, actually. We hope that along the way we can find a lady, but so far it looks like the only gentlemen on this particular show. But well, I will just go ahead and introduce them and ask them to say hello to all of you, our viewers. So let me start with Mr. Let me see, who do I start with? Mr. Richard Drasimaku, who is an editor of Kigezi news agency and also part of West Nile Today. Mr. Richard, you're most welcome. Good afternoon. Kindly say hello to our viewers.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Kidega. Good afternoon, our viewers.
Okay. Thank you very much. The other panelist is someone who I am told is about to become a resident panelist on the community show, and that is none other than Mr. Musinguzi GoodLuck Ronald, who is the managing director of Kigezi News Agency Limited. Mr. GoodLuck, many thanks for joining us this afternoon. Kindly say hello to our viewers.
Thanks, Kidega, the host. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, our listeners. Thank you very much.
Wow, many thanks for joining us. The third panelist who has joined us so far is Mr. Happy Muindo. Mr. Happy, many thanks for joining us. Kindly turn on your microphone and say hello to our viewers.
I'm happy to be part of this show, and I greet all the viewers.
All right, many thanks, Mr. Happy. I will introduce any other panelists who joins us along the way. Happy, let us begin with you straight away. I want to assume that there are certain laymen or people who don't understand whatever is happening in Congo, and they'd be surprised that why are we even discussing Democratic Republic of Congo and their insecurity and how it affects trade at the border, but also within the country and across the region. So to someone who has no idea about what is happening in Congo, the insecurity and who are the perpetrators, is it the M23 rebels? What exactly is happening, first of all, within DRC Congo, before we can expand to analyze how what is happening is affecting trade? Let's just understand what exactly is happening. Let's begin from there, Mr. Muindo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kidega and our viewers. I happen to come from a place from Pondwe border. It is a border with the Democratic Republic of Congo at the eastern edge of the border. This is a border that is very porous. And for Uganda, actually, the only porous border now is the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo, especially the eastern part of Nagana. Congo is one of the biggest countries on the continent of Africa. And Congo has lived through a lot of civil strife, civil and political strife, and also interethnic conflict, right from the times of the late Mobutu Sese Seko through Kabila, the senior, that is Desire Kabila, then through Kabila, the son, to Kabila, the senior, and then even through the time of Tshisekedi. The Eastern Congo has had a lot of rebel groups, over 50 rebel groups operating independently. But for our instance, we are dwelling much on the Allied Democratic Force rebels who invaded Uganda on 13th November 1996. They were repulsed by the UPDF and they ran to the jungles of the Congo forest and also the mountain resort, because it also spreads, much of it is actually in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So these have stayed in this place. They have terrorized people. And I wouldn't be wrong to say that at least on a daily basis, you will be able to count about 5 bodies slain on a daily basis in the Eastern Congo, especially the parts of Rugezi, Ulongo, the Beni, and the killings there have either remained unreported, or even when they are reported, there's no big action from the security agencies in Congo. Of recent, the Uganda People's Defense Force joined with the FARDC of Congo to repulse and end this strife. That was in November last year. For 6 months, their engagement ended about 2 weeks ago, but they are in the process of renewing. There is some bit of sanity, but at a very low percentage. However, when you go to they see some bit of relief with the presence of the joint force of the FARDC and the Uganda People's Defense Forces. However, the killings have gone ahead to happen. Every time you wake up, every morning, you must see bodies everywhere on social media. But all these things don't come in the national media. You see less talk of this security in Congo on our national televisions, or even the BBCs and all this. You see a lot of talk. Now, as Congo is battling with the ADF in the Eastern Congo, there is also the M23 who have attacked the other side of Goma. And they are also killing a lot of people. And these are blamed to be Rwandese nationals, the Banyamulenge. Much as they say they are Congolese, but they are more inclined to Rwanda. Now, this is Rwanda, which is part of the East African community. Congo was just initiated in the East African community. Uganda is part of the East African community. And yet, we see a lot of insecurity. And we don't see a lot of combined effort of the East African community nations to end the civil strife in Congo. And all this is hinged on the fact that there is a lot of wealth in the DRC. There are a lot of minerals in Congo, right from minerals under the soil, and then the forest, the natural forests, which are mahogany in nature. So we attribute much of the security to the natural resources in the DRC. But then it is much felt in Eastern Congo. In fact, from where I come from, the border, that is Mpondwe border from the Ugandan side, people from Congo have opted to come and stay in Mpondwe. They have joined Uganda. In fact, a bigger number of the people now occupying Mpondwe town are Congolese, simply because they don't see any peace coming their way. And they don't see any leader coming up to save the situation. I have seen on social media, almost on a weekly basis, vehicles are trailers being burnt between Kasindi and Blongo. And these are either carrying cocoa, which is now the main production from that side, carrying cocoa to Uganda, or carrying fish, salted fish from Uganda to DRC. They never ban an empty vehicle. They will always ban vehicles that are carrying merchandise. And worst of it, they have also gone ahead to ban, to kill, to slaughter, and to do any way possible for the innocent Congolese to die by slaughtering them. If we collected the blood of people who have died in Eastern Congo, we could get a full river flowing for days, a full river of blood. And there's nothing that is being done to address this issue. And Congo is a country that has about 90 million people. If we added them to the population of these other countries in the African Community Bloc, would have a very strong force, a very strong market for our people. But the insecurity in Congo has had a lot of negative impact, and it is likely to have an impact on the full operation of the East African Bloc, if at all the leaders don't combine, not only the East African Bloc, but also the Great Lakes region. It will have a very big impact. And at one point, Congo may even opt to pull out of this bloc, if at all the insecurity is not addressed. And even when we are expecting to have trade boosted across board, for Congo, it will be another issue. And it is my call upon the leaders that as Congo has joined the East African community, let peace be embraced first. Peace and security be embraced for the people to have a feeling. The Operation Shuja by the FARDC and the UPDF is ongoing. The construction of the road from Mpondwe, Chikorongo, Mpondwe, Beni is also ongoing. But with insecurity, all these roads will be left without anyone utilizing them. Because Congolese now opt to use, for those who have the money and these big traders, they now opt to use planes to do business. Now, for a normal person, for a local person, and who are the biggest percentage, it will not be easy for them to engage in business, even when they have joined the East African Community Bloc. So the insecurity in Congo is alarming. It is really alarming. Not today, but it is a strife that is taking over 21 years now. And for those who look at these issues, we count over 1.5 million people who have died in this civil strife. So as a community, as a people, as a bloc, we need to lay strategies of bringing peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo if we must enjoy together with them in the East African bloc. Over to you, Kidega. Thank you.
Wow. I wonder if I should give anyone else an opportunity to tell us what is happening in Congo, because you've done us justice in terms of, explaining the historical perspective and, trying to unpack exactly what is happening within the country. But I think just to be fair, let me give also GoodLuck Musinguzi an opportunity to give us his own perspective as a journalist, as someone who spends his time covering stories and unpacking the truth and, separating the truth from the lies and, GoodLuck, what exactly is happening to the ordinary viewer, even before we discuss the impact of what is happening to the economy at the border and to trade? what exactly is happening, first of all, from your own perspective?
Thank you very much. I can start by saying when you reach at Bunagana border, there is a mark stone which shows that the distance between Uganda and Kinshasa is 3,000 miles away. The nearest biggest town towards Kinshasa is Kisangani, which is over 1,000 kilometers away. Downwards, Goma is like 100 kilometers. I normally want to call Congo, that area, like a triangle of death. Why do I call it a triangle of death? Is that, as my colleague has said, there are several armed marauding pharaohs who are contracted by different mining companies at both bigger and small scale. It is very hard for anyone to believe that the administrative capital of Congo is 3,000 miles away from this area. Definitely, now, even going backwards, I can remind you, people in Eastern DRC, they never voted for the current administration. The area had become so insecure, so they felt that the other parts of the world of Congo could vote while they will sort out the Eastern DRC. As my colleague has said, Congo has vast minerals. The minerals should be helping the people of Congo. And for some reasons, when you go to Congo, I know here in Uganda also we are not saying everything is fine, but when you look at Congolese, the individuals, you see poverty, you see despair, you see hopelessness. You wonder whether people think they will live another day. I stayed in Congo for 2 years covering the M23. I covered most of the battles they held when they captured Goma, and they were moved out of Goma, and eventually the last day when the combined forces of the region led by Tanzania, Malawi, South Africa, Angola, pushed M23 out, and we saw somehow the resemblance of peace. And even it never took a long time. I remember when the M23 had been pushed out around after 6 hours, around 3 p.m., I managed to enter again Congo, at the side of Bunagana, to see what was there, to cover moments of happiness, to see people rejoice that the Congolese forces had secured the border. I remember the commander who was there, he was called Commander Mamedu, but later on, he was to be killed in an ambush where they used a big gun to, hit his vehicle and stand in 2 pieces. Now, that is DRC that it's very hard, for example, and I like the panel today because you have Drasimaku in West Nile. It's also, there's also a vast border there. You have Kasese, then you have this other 1,000, the other part where we have Kigezi bordering Congo. Now, interestingly, while near Kasese area, you are battling with ADF, downwards, you are battling M23. Yes, like my colleague has said, that the Banyamulenge are a bit of connected with Rwanda, but I must also say there is also another tribe called the Hema. the Hema, they speak like Luchiga Runyankole. Now, interestingly, when Kanomamedo at the time, he captured the Eastern DRC from M23 on behalf of the Congolese forces, I was speaking to him in my mother language, but it is also another tribe inside there. So it's this combination that you have these plains of, all call them 1,000 hills, that go deep in Rwanda, in Kigezi, and deep in Eastern DRC. They are all volcanical. They were formed because of volcanic eruptions that took place in those many years. Now, these areas are covered by people who are nomadic, who were grazing cattle and all that. Below Goma is close to Rwanda. Now, what is interesting is that you have another group of people called the Mai Mai. When I was in Congo, if there was any group of people that made me have sleepless nights, we are called the Mai Mai. The Mai Mai would come, whatever they would find, they would destroy, they would kill. The Mai Mai, if you had, like my colleague has said, if you had merchandise and you are taking it to Goma, you must make sure you have cigarettes, you must have dollars in small denominations, and you must have some medicine. Now, once you put that one and you are able to share some of this, something for them. So whenever I remember the route to Goma, where you have actually they have the second garrison, the second biggest garrison, or what you would call here an army division in Uganda. It is on that road to Goma. But again, you would have as many roadblocks you could meet by different surrounding armed groups who would be also collecting taxes, and they would want a share of So you have somebody transporting goods, but you don't know how many times you have to pay taxes in form of I don't know how to describe it, but for me that's the Congo. And also the other thing I can explain to you is that when you enter like 30 kilometers, even up to Rushuru, these people use our money, Ugandan money. Whenever there's anything, even when there's insecurity, they find it more easier to run to Uganda than going deep. Because as I told you, to get to another city that would provide safety would be more than 1,000 kilometers, which is equivalent from leaving Bunagana to Nairobi. And definitely I can assure you, these are long distances, not opened by roads. So you find in these small spots, different, I don't want to call them war roads, but different people who wield power that is beyond the government. Lastly, I want to talk about MONUSCO. When I was in Congo, MONUSCO would pass with their convoys, and of course they would do nothing. They would come, either these people are addressing people, or they are coming to visit some administrative places. MONUSCO would pass with their tanks and members, and they would pass. So I used to ask, because I would be near the rebels, but here I would see a force by the United Nations. And here you would see people who are desperate, hopeless, and then you would ask, who is going to save who? So I think, as my colleague said, that when UPDF entered, for me even before UPDF entered, the day I heard that Uganda, through those services, and DRC had sort of worked out a framework that would work on the road, I can tell you, I don't know, I felt some happiness in my heart. Because even when I left Congo, I knew there is a part of Africa that needs liberation. And when you are talking about Eastern DRC, I don't know how many, whether you would have 1.5 or 2 times of Uganda. So this is a vast place that is left to be controlled by surrounding forces. As he said, the killing happens as to when people kill because there is no administration. There are no people who will shout about the killings, but there are no people who will expose the killings. So anybody who pacifies Congo, or when DRC enters the East African community, I think for me, in my lifetime, it's one of the things, a monument or an event that has happened that I feel even when I die, I will die a happy man that once again, Congo one day will see peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. GoodLuck. Musinguzi.
Yes, Kidega.
Yes, I am saying thank you very much, Mr. GoodLuck Musinguzi. That was very elaborate. It's only fair that I give Richard also a chance to let us know what he thinks. Mr. Happy, I'll come back to you later. Let's just hear from Richard. Richard Drasimaku. Yes, Richard, the floor is yours. The rest have given us their own perspective. Some have been in Congo, they've been there physically and have told us their fair share of experience. You're equally a journalist and you're based in West Nile. West Nile has also had a fair share of insecurity, but I think mainly arising from South Sudan. But I know that as a journalist, you've also covered or you have knowledge about the Congo insecurity. So let us just get your own perspective, then we shall move forward to discussing the economic relations and how the same is being deterred. So the floor is yours, Mr. Richard.
Yes, thank you very much, Moses. I think before we start speaking about the insecurity in Eastern Congo, in my view, we need to first understand what DRC joining the East African community actually means. Because just like, as Francis had said, DRC has a population of more than 90 million people. Now, when you add this onto the population of East African community before it joined, then you are talking of over 290 million people who are going to be trading among themselves. And that also means a huge labor force of all types, whether skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled. Eastern Congo alone, from Katanga through Ituri, Kivu, Bukavu down to Tanganyika area, has about 35 million people, which is more than the population of Rwanda and Burundi combined. DRC joining East African community means you now have a land mass, a huge land mass of more than 4.7 million square, 4.7 million kilometers square from Indian Ocean to the Atlantic. We all know the importance of land in terms of economics, because it is an important factor of production. It means for the first time, both River Nile and River Congo are now in East African community. This is historic. And all the resources in these rivers are now within the East African community. And it also means that the vast Congo Basin rainforest, which is like the second heart of the globe in terms of climate change control, after the Amazon, is now within the East African community. My colleagues have spoken about mineral deposits of all kinds. That means East African community actually has the minerals it needs for its industrial development, all within itself. But to exploit all these minerals, all this potential, you need a stable and secure Democratic Republic of Congo, and more especially the eastern part. But as it has already been explained, the Eastern Congo, right from Ngaramba by there in the northwest of the country, the northeast of the country, up down to Tanganyika area, is just a web of insecurity. Insecurity, some of which are Islamist in nature. That's why we are talking of ADF. Some are inter-ethnic. You have just the Banamulenges. They had said this Hutu-Tutsi tension, which originated from Rwanda and moved across. You have the Bahima and the Lendu. You were saying that the West Nile segment does not have much insecurity, but that's not true. Last year, we had UPDF soldiers killed in Zombo, and the attackers originated from this Bahima and the Lendu tension. That's why there were talks of Homeland Liberation Movement. So these are some of the insecurity like cartel, like in nature. And in such a situation, the impact on you cannot have free movement of labor when there are ambushes, people are being killed, people are being abducted. You can't have the infrastructure you need for trade, like the roads. I'm glad that the UPDF with the dot services is trying to open some roads there, but that road will not be usable. You will be having the ambushes which have been talked about, unless you will be having convoys escorting people like they were doing it when Kony was killing people here in northern Uganda. So in such a situation, it becomes difficult to do trade across the border. And that's why DRC's main trading partners are actually countries that are outside the East African community. You have the European Union, you have China, the USA, South Africa. Because that side of Atlantic, it is somehow peaceful. Southern DRC is peaceful. So they trade more with people on that side. So in my view, it is a welcome development that the DRC has joined East African community, but there is a need for a coordinated joint East African community intervention to stabilize Eastern Congo, because the economic benefits will be universal to the entire community. That's my view. Thank you, Mr. Moses.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. I think that we have been able to explore really what exactly is happening. So let's now move towards addressing what exactly is the gist of today's conversation, which is the history that all of you have given us in terms of the insecurity. Now, how does this relate to the economic activities, both at the border and across the region? And just like I began, I'll begin with you, Mr. Happy Muindo. We know that DRC Congo is known to be a basket of minerals, a basket of natural resources, yeah, and it is a hub for so many economic activities, and maybe that is why our government is attempting to connect, the two countries by constructing the road network. But let's just cut to the chase. What economic activities are famously being run at the border of Uganda and Congo, but also how does the insecurity play out in affecting this particular economic activity, in your own view, Mr. Happy?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm putting a rejoinder. that will then usher in my thinking in line. Like my colleagues have said, we have the Banyamulenge who are taken to be Rwandese and people from Kigezi. We have the Bahema Lendu who are nomads related to the Bahima of Uganda. We have the Mai Mai who are local Congolese. We have the ADF, which is a combination of Baganda, Bakonzo, and people from the Eastern Uganda, Kenya, and some Somalis. Then we have the UN, which seems to be a peacekeeping mission, but a little delinked from what the community or from what the population thinks they are supposed to do. And as we try to unpack the issues of trade in Congo, we realize there is absence of a local governance system in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That is why every point you reach, you pay a tax that is not uniform with what you thought you had paid prior. If you meet 5 roadblocks, then you will pay 5 times. That is the real situation. If you use Mpondwe border through to Beni, Butembo, that axis, the moment you get to pay to a stopover, you have to pay. You get to another stopover, you pay, just till you reach where you're going. So the absence of a local governance system is one of the issues that is affecting the trades in the DRC. The infrastructure in the Eastern DRC is very poor. That from Pondwe, you only find some tarmac road, some small tarmac road in Beni at the roundabout. That's where you'll find a small little tarmac road like a kilometer. So the healthy centers and most of the schools are ones that were initially run or established by the missionaries under the Catholic Church. Now, in 2019, DRC applied to be part of the East African community. Finally, early this year, it was allowed and incorporated in the East African bloc. This indeed will boost trade by ensuring free movement of goods, services, and people across these countries. And then Congo as a country shares borders with all East African community members except Kenya. And by joining the bloc, DRC now has access to the Indian Ocean and the ports of Dar es Salaam and Mombasa. Now, the key economic activities here, the trade, people are mostly trading in timber, that is from the Ituri forest. People are trading, and timber is actually a very big business. It's a very big business for the people at the border. People are getting palm, are getting food items from Rwanda, especially plantain, gonja, which people are using to make crisps and these other things. Then rice is one of the food stuff that comes from Congo. Irish potatoes, then potatoes and cassava flour. Likewise, Ugandans also export certain things to Congo, especially mixed goods. Mixed goods, I mean things like soap, clothes, plastics, and very many other things. So the border, Uganda mostly exports fish, salted fish, and of recent, even fresh fish to the DRC. However, the insecurity in the Eastern DRC has hampered this business greatly. The moment you leave Mpondwe border, about 15 kilometers from the border town of Kasindi in DRC, going the other side of Congo. There is a Karuruma, a place called Karuruma. Crossing that Karuruma place, that's heading towards Beni, is on God's mercy. And some people actually jokingly say, it's better you write a will when you're crossing there. So if this trend continued, we will not have any trade that is being posted here at the borders. The minerals, no one will tell you that me, I'm carrying certain mineral. It's like a public secret. It is a secret. Trading in minerals is a secret. And it's like a preserve of the governments. So when I talk to the governments, you know what I talk about. I'm talking about. So no one will tell you. But also, if you look at the recent days, a Congolese leaving his country is coming to Uganda, pays $45 or $35 coming to Uganda. When they reach Ugandan side, they pay a visa of about $50. And then they do a COVID test that is about $40. So you find at the end of the day, someone is using over $120 to reach Kampala from Congo to Kampala. $120 to clear yourself without transport, accommodation, and all this. But with this opening of the East African Community Bloc, I think now people are able to access, apart from paying for COVID, people will freely access. Likewise, Ugandans will freely. But Ugandans are still reserved. It's only those who are strong-hearted that are able to cross to Congo because of the security that is just 15 kilometers away from the border town, that is Kasindi Lubiriha. Now, when we have joined this East African community, especially having Congo on our side now, the process of transporting goods, we are looking, because there is a period that was given for Congo to now to start scrapping off some of the taxes and also going by the taxes that are agreeable to the East African community. So by joining the East African community, we are looking at transportation of goods becoming more simpler, because people, the authorities at these borders have been operating different systems, but now we are going to have a uniform system. Currently in Mpondwe, a one border stop point is being worked on under the Great Lakes Trade Facilitation Project. And we are talking of now working through over 300 million people in the East African bloc. So this is a greater chance for trade. And not only big trade in big things, but also in small scale businesses. And you know, of course, across board, women take the biggest population, and they are the people who are trading on these borders at these East African countries. So we have women taking up a better chance. But now, with the revision of the M23 in the Goma side, the works, the terrorism of the UPDF in the eastern side, there is a lot that is desired. And you've had time and again, the masses rising up against the MONUSCO, because, like I said, there is a link between the people and the the MONUSCO. So if we must embrace trade, we must embrace commerce at our borders. There is need for an East African community security kind of intervention to salvage the situation in Congo. However, in some other cases, in extreme cases, insecurity is also a way of people making trade, especially those who are directly engaged in security. So at the level up there, I know there are people who are trading. People are now I know people are extracting minerals under this fracas. They are extracting the timber and other things. But as a population, we are at a loss. So an intervention by all the countries within East African bloc to end insecurity in Congo is very ideal and very desired. I have always laughed at some Congolese because the Bakonzo on this side of Uganda, who mostly occupy the whole stretch of the mountain, are the same people on the other side of Uganda, of Congo. And when a Congolese enters Uganda from Pondwe and reaches Kampala on Tarmac Road, they say, you people, why can't you lend us your president for some 2 years? You give him to us, we pay you, and he does all this, you know? So there is a lot that is desired in Congo for us to have this trade boosted. If you bought a car and you felt I should go, for example, to Goma through Mpondwe, Beni, you will reach Goma, yes, after some days, but that vehicle may not bring you back because of the nature of roads. And worst of it is when it is the rainy season. You may have merchandise going or coming from Congo, but it may take even 3 months for you to receive your luggage or for your luggage to be delivered the other side. Yes, the currency is acceptable. The dollar, basically the dollar and the shilling, the Ugandan shilling, is basically being used across these border towns. But the roads are very bad in a sorry state, much as there is some kilometers that will be tarmacked to have access to the town, the business town of Beni and Butembo. But all the insecurity, the security is not strengthened. We shall engage in trade, but we shall have more people dying in ambushes than people dying normally. And from this other side, not only that, the social amenities, like I said, are very lacking. Congo has a lot of, has been hit by a lot of epidemics or pandemics. And these are also part of what makes personal security quite a bit wanting. So it is just not only the physical, peace and security, but also the security, the social security, the economic security, and all round overhaul of the security situation in Congo. And still goes back to the East African leaders and the people of East Africa to come up and lay strategies of salvaging the situation in Congo. Otherwise, I wouldn't be quoted bad to say that people who die in Eastern Congo in a month could be more than got slaughtered in butcheries in Congo. Over to you, Kidega.
Okay, thank you very much, Happy. I see Joachim Kule has joined us, but before I bring in Joachim, let me go to Joachim. Before I bring you in, let me first listen from Mr. GoodLuck Musinguzi. GoodLuck, Happy mentions about strategies that that East African member states need to involve in, that, you know, things that we need to do to ensure that we can curb the insecurity in Congo and therefore improve the economic situation. Do you think that government of Uganda constructing a road in Congo of so many kilometers, do you think that is one of the strategies that Mr. Happy here is trying to talk about? And if so, what is the impact of that particular infrastructure development? One, to addressing the insecurity, then two, to addressing the economic question that is lingering today. So speak to the aspect of our strategy as a country in terms of constructing that particular road and how this impacts on the economic situation. Then I'll just bring in Kule shortly, then I will go to Mr. Richard. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think you remember when Rwanda crossed the Katuna border and all these other borders with us, Uganda felt that they had to put in policies quickly that really covers or opens up DRC to save us. So I believe, and as I had mentioned before, that one of the greatest gifts and one of the best strategies that Uganda has made is to make sure that they open up these roads. And I wouldn't want to go back to the diplomatic problems we have with Uganda and Rwanda, but I know that the opening of Bunagana, Rushuru, Goma Road is one of the reasons why M23 could be coming in the picture. Because if you open that road, it will take less than half a day, or it will take a day for someone to leave Goma by road to Kampala, meaning they can come here, work on their merchandise, and drive back either in the night, and in 24 hours, if you want goods, they have been delivered. You know, Rwanda depends most, they've been funding their forces and all that with the trade in Eastern DRC. So when those services came to open that road, I felt that's when M23 came. But for me, I know when those roads are opened, and even if they open more, I heard Ugandans say they were complaining that how do you go to open other roads, yet you have also the same problem in Uganda. But people didn't know that here we are talking of a big trade surplus that could really earn us some good money that we want. One thing I must mention is that apart from the roads, the security aspect, when we bought the SCOIs around 2001, I as a person, I didn't know whether I could think that it was a good investment. But let me tell you one thing. Actually, yesterday, that's when our trade mission, which has most of the companies in Uganda, left Goma. But when they were in Kinshasa, they were told it is going to be impossible for them to go to Goma. And definitely it was very difficult it becomes difficult for us, like my colleague has said, to go to the Atlantic Ocean to pitch there, yet you have Goma, Beni, and these other cities and people in the east. What happened is that Uganda chartered plane ready, but also we had to get SCOIs, which had to fly over to make sure that our trade delegation lands safely in Eastern DRC, but also lives safely. So the strategy that Uganda has in terms of having the planes and opening the roads, I think for me it will work for us very well. Now, when the roads are opened, it is easier to move in ground troops in order if you want to secure a road. And I can tell you one other thing you need to know is that the few kilometers that are being secured by the UPDF, as the construction is ongoing, we are also seeing the private security companies being called in to secure some of the businesses in Eastern DRC. So that means Uganda, if we are wise enough this time round, not like we did in Southern Sudan, the Kenyans, while we did the sacrifice, the death of our people and all that for almost 40 years, helping Southern Sudan to be liberated, the Kenyans came and sat on the table, opened banks, the airlines opened up the spaces, and Kenya benefited a lot. So I'm seeing this time round, the strategy in terms of the leadership of the different organizations, be it Ministry of Trade, be it the Investment Authority, and these other ones like Uganda Manufacturing Association and all these ones, they are trying to move in. Then the other aspect we need to talk about is tourism. When you look at the Rwenzolis, when you open up Rwenzori, when you secure it on the other side of DRC, you will have also tourists who come, maybe they enter from Uganda, they exit from Congo, or vice versa. On the southern side, we have where we have the Virunga. Here is shared by Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo. We have had before mountain gorillas killed, or the rangers killed by the surrounding armed people. So once you secure Congo, Eastern DRC, we are sure that tourists will come and they can do that circuit, and definitely the people will benefit on the aspect of tourism. Then the other aspect I want to talk about is the manufacturing aspect. I stayed in a town called Rubale. Interestingly, the names of some towns here in Uganda, they are also the other side of DRC. When I stayed in this town for like a week, one of the things I did was every day I would wake up to go to visit shops on the different streets. I found products of Uganda breweries, all these other sorts of, at the time I remember Ugandans, they were manufacturing waraj in the circuits. That time they had not put in, moved to the bottles, but you could find that most of in the happening hours of the evening, all the drinks were coming from Uganda. So there is that potential. But like Hape said, the issue is administration. Who is in charge of Eastern DRC? If they never voted, can we have in the coming, and I know they are preparing for the next elections, if UPDF can help them provide peace and they are able to conduct elections, then we would have an authority that would be able to move some of the things. But currently, Eastern DRC is run under a military, like even the governor, you have some of these governors are appointed by Kinshasa, like the one of Goma is a military man at a level of a general. So for me, in order to democratize, if people are to believe in the leaderships they have, like us here, we know that we change leaders at certain levels more often. You have that faith that I'll move from here, go to Kasese, go to West Nile, go to Kisoro without any problem. So the other aspect we would need to see in DRC is East and DRC being democratized. So they have leaders from MPs down to the local councils. Then the other aspect is having DRC appoint people who are vetted in the immigration and the revenue authority, because this one will give chance that the DRC government will be collecting money that will go in the national coffers or the consolidated fund. But as we speak today, money is picked and shared across just a small section where services, as my brother was saying, you don't have some of these services reach people because the money is shared by some top people. But I can also recommend the Catholic Church. If you have heard, DRC is 95% Catholic. And I know the Archbishop of Congo, down with also these other administrative, the bishops and the Reverend Fathers in the different places. They have a role to play in order to boost to reawaken their people. Last, I wish we can start having meetings, cross-border meetings, where we have our people go inside Congo, like we have had the first group of our traders and led by one of our ministers who entered in and talked business. But now we have to map out in these other small towns. And I remember one time when I was in DRC, I visited one of the radio stations because it was also people have to communicate. People have to listen to radio, have to get messages. And I remember visiting one of these radio stations. It had good equipment, which had been donated by President Joseph Kabila, but the studio was in dire need. And I remember promising them that when I returned to Uganda, I would get to them like simple microphones, which I did deliver on a personal initiative. I connected that radio to a radio called Voice of Kigezi in Kabale, and the owner donated some of the microphones and a few things to use in the studios. So for me, then on the part of the media, we and I hope if there are facilities or resources that can help us, we need also to do the collaboration of media, so that what is the media in Congo telling people? Are they still talking about their ethnic differences? Are they still talking about some of these other challenges, or they are also talking about the opportunities that come when these countries put strategies that open up this big landmass? Thank you very much.
Wow. That was a mouthful of an explanation. Let's just bring in the new entrant. Oh, he has again left us. So I guess Mr. Kule's network is having issues, so I'll just move to you, Richard. Richard, I love the way the conversation is going, but Democratic Republic of Congo is the new kid on the block. They have just joined the East African Federation. And what is your own analysis of this in respect to, one, the insecurity, two, to trade? Do you think that they are joining the East African Federation is a guarantee of their security, and but also is a guarantee for our trade as a region? Because I have listened to one of these UPDF soldiers, and they were trying to explain the idea of strategic depth, that the bigger or the wider you are as geographically, is the more difficult it becomes for any outsider to compromise your security because of the strategic depth concept. So do you think that the East African Federation, do you think that DRC joining EAC is a guarantee for their security, but also is it a guarantee for economic benefit? Can we anticipate some of these economic challenges and these trade challenges being mitigated because of this formalization of their entry into the East African Federation?
Thank you, Moses. You see, DRC has one of the biggest gold mines. That is Durba, and which is being controlled right now by Americans, by Europeans. Of course, these guys sleep in hotels in Arua, and they move there. And even when you speak of the real estate business in Arua, it is mostly driven by Congolese businessmen. in peaceful areas, these guys take contracts and then they invest whatever money they make in the real estate business here. Some of the honey you people are drinking in Kampala comes from DRC and passes via West Nile. So the economic benefits are sure to triple by DRC joining. And I think there's been a good strategy laid to benefit from this potential, like the one-stop border initiatives. In West Nile, there is one being constructed in Goli. I think it is almost complete. And actually, the next road that's going to be constructed by Uganda is going to connect that one-stop border point in Goli to Mahagi and to Bunia. And the last time I was hearing from the investment summits, I think Uganda has opened a consulate in Goma. West Nile needs one in Bunia to facilitate trading in this side. So I think by DRC joining, we are sure to reap economically, and the strategies that have been undertaken are good. But security-wise, yeah, it is true, the bigger you are, but DRC itself is already big. Actually, I just wonder, I think what is lacking is serious commitment to invest in DRC's own security apparatus. A country of that vastness, that huge population, that rich, unexploited, wealth, they should be having the strongest army in Africa, actually. But I think there's been a lack of commitment at leadership level. So, together with the other East African community members, they need to work. There is a need to work jointly and address the security situation in that part of Eastern Congo. I think East African community has been having an initiative of creating a standby force. DRC Army needs to be incorporated into this, and perhaps they start joint trainings to enhance the capacity of the army of DRC. And that way, we shall have collective security assured for all the East African community members, and it will provide fertile ground for cross-border trade among the East African community members, including DRC. That's my take on this issue. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Richard. I see Kule. Kule, I see you're back on. Kule, I would love to bring you in at this point in time. You've been on and off, but basically, what is your own understanding of the issue in DRC Congo? What do you make of it? And what do you think should be the interventions from member states to support DRC Congo to deal with the insurgents in terms of security, but also to address the economic issue that this insecurity poses both on DRC Congo, but above all, on the region entirely. So Kule, the floor is yours. Francis Happy Muindo, let me bring you back on board. Of recent, there has been a new emerging issue between Rwanda, between the government in Kigali and the government in Kinshasa. And Kinshasa has accused Kigali of supporting the M23 rebels against the government of Kinshasa. And this, in one way or another, undermines the security and the efforts of the East African Federation member states in addressing the insecurity question in DRC Congo. Do you think that it is possible for us to have a common security agenda as the East African Federation if from time and again we see one member state being accused of orchestrating violence in another member state? Do you think that it is optimistic enough for us to say that time will come when the East African Federation member states will work towards a common security agenda, or we shall continuously move in a cycle of this state is being accused by this other state? What do you make of this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kidega. Like I earlier mentioned, you will understand that one of the reasons that this East African community delayed to take off, even when South Sudan, Burundi, and Congo had not yet come into this, there were counter accusations from member states by then, the three East African states then and Rwanda at that time. Counter accusations of insecurity coming from a member state. So it's one of the reasons the East African community delayed to take off. And as a bloc, if this continued, I earlier mentioned that it is possible that even some other members will opt to pull out, because currently Congo is accusing Rwanda of being part and parcel of the M23. So this is one of the entry, I call it entry welcome kind of events that the DRC is looking at, is facing. It is just about 2 or so months for it to join the community, and then it is welcomed by insecurity, the other side. So if this continued, I know Congo one day can opt out of this. But the President of the Republic of Uganda has tried all the best to have security restored in Southern Sudan by having peace talks with different leaders, rebel leaders in Southern Sudan. I think this kind of dialoguing needs to be taken on, especially in the DRC, which has a multitude of rebel groups. So dialogues between leaders must occur regularly, and then continued international support in the region must continue. By embracing the East African community, it literally means that my problem is your problem. If there is insecurity in Congo, it should be insecurity in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, and Southern Sudan. That is literally what it means. And despite all the fragility in the DRC, there are a number of accomplishments in the region that must be consolidated towards lasting peace. Regional cooperation in security matters must be strengthened. Regional cooperation in security matters. We can have all other processes go on, but the first matter to handle should be security. And a joint force by the East African member states responding to security issues as mentioned in the pact that they signed must be embraced. And a special force for this matter must be put in place to respond to any insecurity-related cases, especially cross-border security issues. I know we have internal security issues like the insecurity issues, like the issues in Karamoja and all that. These can be handled by individual member states, but these cross-border, cross-boundary should be taken on by a standby force. There is currently a training taking place in Uganda, a joint training between Rwanda and Ugandan security forces that is taking place here in Uganda. Such a force should be grown to the East African level to handle issues of security within the East African member states. The other issue is that the East African Legislative Assembly should start taking on some of these concerns, discussing issues of peace and security as key agenda for the East African Legislative Assembly. Otherwise, we can have a very good bloc and it starts disintegrating And what will disintegrate this bloc is security. Yes, we are heading towards having one currency, one uniform national language, one or two national languages, but without security across board, all these will end nowhere. We may continue with this for some 10 years when we are not at peace. Yes, we are in a block, but we are not moving any further. So from me, I would wish that the issue of security be top on agendas of the East African member state parliaments, and also on top agenda on the East African Legislative Assembly. And this is the only way to go. Otherwise, without dialogue, without joint security, the young member states will not see a fully fledged East African community bloc. I beg to submit.
Many thanks. I'll just have one more question for GoodLuck and one more question for Richard. Then I'll pick your concluding remarks. So, Mr. GoodLuck, the role of international institutions like the African Union and maybe even the United Nations, do you think, first of all, they have a role to play in addressing the insecurity in Congo? Because we all agree that it is the insecurity that is affecting the economic trade at the borders, but also affecting free movement of both people and commodities and services. So let's speak partly to the role of international institutions like the African Union and the United Nations. Yes, we have hinted on the East African community, but I think let us take it slightly broader, because we know that that UN has had several peacekeeping missions, across Africa. So maybe Congo could be of special interest to the international community. So what do you think is their role? Then I will have a question for Mr. Richard. Then I'll pick your concluding remarks. So the floor is yours. Good luck.
Thank you, Moses. The biggest UN force we have in the world as of today is located in Eastern DRC or in Congo. It has not proved, it has not helped the situation. Recently, we saw the Italian ambassador being killed in Goma. Recently, we saw a helicopter being downed by the M23 forces. And mostly these were Pakistanis who were on that helicopter. So and when you talk of African Union, apart from facilitating maybe meetings and all that, I don't really see the United Nations or the AU doing much more in the Congo. Actually, to help a little bit where Happy said that Rwanda and Uganda are the only ones training, it's not true. All the East African countries, apart from DRC, Burundi, Kenya, every other country sent in forces which are training. They could be training somewhere in Jinja, but also currently, even if you saw today's event, the CDF of Uganda, General Mbadi is in DRC, is in Goma. We have the army commanders of all the East African countries. They are now in an ongoing meeting that is taking place in Goma. They are trying to look for the solution. So for me, I have a feeling that apart from the United Nations facilitating such a meetings, we and the AU, if there are funds, they need to provide the funds so that even under IGAD or COMESA, we can find resources that could help the forces putting up a joint military force that could help stabilize the region, and most especially fighting terrorism from the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. Uganda has provided a seed through our investments in the armed forces. The other thing I would want to remind people is that the other week I was in Nakasogola. I was able to see Uganda is repairing helicopters. So meaning that Uganda could be central if we can invest money into this, so that we be the center of security or providing security. But as Richard said, DRC also needs to commit some good funds, that we cannot keep going into different countries to help here and there to waste what would be our resources in a country that can really put a budget, even if they want us to help them. For me, like the Central African Republic is paying for our forces, maybe DRC needs to do this so that we have battalions that can be permanently stationed in Congo, monitored, even as where the media can go and monitor their activities. But I have little faith from what I described about MONUSCO, that I was there, I saw them, I wondered why they had come to Congo, because if rebels can hold meetings, can do operations, and your role is just to waste the world's money by driving your APCs around some of these small towns, and you are not an enforcing, peacekeepers. I think for me it's a wastage, and I would wish to join many Congolese to say that the UN should remove MONUSCO in DRC and provide money to train the forces in DRC so that we can see a vibrant DRC that is secure, and that all of us can be able to tap into these opportunities. So for me, it's a big no. I don't see UN and A doing anything tangible. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Good luck. Richard, finally, my question to you is just slightly around the economy. You know, how best can we encourage free movement of both goods and services within the region, well knowing that we have different education systems, we have different laws and policies, we have different, the principle of sovereignty, at times stands tall. And therefore, these different laws and policies in these sovereign countries at times hinder trade and hinder economic activities. So how best do you think that we can go about with the issue of streamlining our policies, more so around economic policies, issues around custom duty, so that there is free movement of goods and services, because it is a fact to note that at times the differences in these policies and in these policy gaps at times have played a big role in hindering or fostering free trade. So maybe to this, you can speak to the role of the East African Legislative Assembly and their role in terms of formulating policies that are binding on these member states, or even maybe to the role of the East African Court of Appeal in terms of addressing some of these judicial challenges, or still addressing the law that is not well streamlined. So speak to the aspect of the differences in the policies and how it hinders economic trade and activities. Then I'll give you all 2 minutes each to give us your last words. So Richard, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it is true that we have differences in terms of laws, in terms of tariff plans, regulations, and so forth. And just as you mentioned, there are those language differences. Like in DRC, the most dominant language there is French. And, while here we are more into English, our other neighbors are more into Swahili. So there's a need to harmonize this and perhaps develop a common educational strategy where these languages are prioritized. And just as you have mentioned again, East African community has the legislature. That's their role now to study the different laws and come up with the most appropriate, which can cut across the entire region. And once they have done that, then it should now be the member states to adapt this and streamline the internal laws so that there is a free flow of labor, there is free flow of trade. And we also need a lot of capacity building, by the way, of these players. I think one of the hindrances has been that marketing is a problem for the local industries. They lack the skills, the knowledge. So those are areas that needs to be invested into. Those are the ICT to facilitate trade across borders. If the opportunities in ICT are embraced, I think we may not even need to move physically from one place to another in order to do business. You can conduct business from one place, order things online, pay online, and it will be a smooth process. So I think there is need to invest into that, in ICT, capacity building of the local entrepreneurs, and then provide the facility, the capital needed, like affordable loans and so forth, so that they are able to do production at a cost-effective level, and then they're able to compete with these other traders coming from outside, from Asia, and so on. And that will also be one way of trying to eliminate this rampant smuggling across borders. Because if the goods that are produced locally, they are priced cheaply, then no one will be interested in getting something from outside to come and dump into our local market. So I think those are the areas that are needed to improve the business environment within the East African community. Thank you, Moses.
Thank you very much, Richard. So I'll now begin to invite, actually, Richard, let's just begin with you in 2 minutes, and I'll be timing you. So just use 2 minutes. I think we have explored most of the areas. So just in your parting shots, I'll give you 2 minutes to give us your last words on the show and maybe a recommendation, a way forward. How best can we address the insecurity in DRC Congo, and any other thing that maybe you want to say as your last word. So I'll begin with Richard, then I'll go to Mr. GoodLuck, then I'll conclude with Mr. Francis. Happy. So 2 minutes each, kindly. Let's begin.
Yeah, thank you. Even I can finish in less than 2 minutes. I think my concluding remarks that it is a good thing that DRC has joined the East African community, and it provides an opportunity for joint intervention to stabilize the eastern part of DRC. I think experience has shown that unilateral military interventions have failed in the past, and they are not desirable at this moment. Now, to pacify Eastern DRC and improve the business environment, I think there is a need to pursue both active military strategy, but also promoting negotiation and dialogue with these different armed groups until we reach a state where DRC's different rebel groups can be disarmed, demobilized, and reintegrated. Instability in that region will continue to persist. So we need a mix of strategy, both military intervention, but also negotiation to end that insecurity and improve the business environment. Thank you. Back to you, Kidega.
Yes, thank you. Mr. GoodLuck Musinguzi, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. My take on this is that I would wish to speak to the managing director or the board of Centenary Bank. That while we have seen Equity Bank enter Congo, while we also know for a fact that the Catholic Church is so entrenched in Congo, and knowing that the Centenary Bank is built on that foundation, I would wish to see the Centenary Bank really try to make inroads, and maybe they would make much more money, and this would facilitate more trade. It would help us to move money in and out. Secondly, I would wish to speak to members of the public that if your security forces, for any reasons, if your security forces have problems, have any issues, while you castigate them, please, I was in Congo, a country becomes lawless when you find that the security forces are not doing the right thing. So I want to say UPDF should increase its presence in DRC through negotiated meetings. I mean, yes, meetings and whatever. Find a way of helping pacify Congo, train the forces in DRC, give them the confidence that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Mr. Happy.
Yes, thank you, members, for your submissions. I also recommend that one, while the use of force should eventually be important to neutralize armed groups, especially where there are many armed groups in Congo, all member states must first track or must first work together to implement the Congolese strategy to demobilize armed groups and rebuild trust between its neighbors or between or amongst themselves, rebuilding the trust amongst the member states. That too, there is need to address the root causes of conflicts in the East African bloc through non-military means and combating of the illicit trade in natural resources that funds armed groups. Then they also need to improve diplomatic relations and strengthen efforts to protect borders against terrorism, piracy, and other transnational crimes. There is also need for policy reforms in all sectors across all the member states so that we move together in all sectors uniformly in all sectors. And lastly, we need to integrate the East African trade infrastructure, intermodal connectivity, or the one border posts and trade systems to reduce on trade time and costs across the borders of the member states. I beg to submit.
All right, Mrs. Happy Muindo, GoodLuck Musinguzi, and Richard Drasimaku, thank you very much for sparing the time to share your insights with us. And of course, to the viewers of this show, it's always glad to have you tune in and listen to what the community show has to offer. From us to you, Many thanks and wish you a lovely afternoon, a lovely week, and a lovely end of month. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your time.